Hello, my beautiful Scorpio. Welcome back. I hope you're finding a quiet moment for yourself today, because the energy coming through already feels deep, gentle, and surprisingly emotional. As I began sitting with your cards, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone has been carrying your energy much longer than they ever expected. Whether you're speaking to this person or not, there seems to be an invisible thread that still connects the two of you, and it feels as though something beneath the surface is slowly beginning to move. The first card that quietly stepped forward was the Hermit. It doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels more like someone choosing silence because they know careless words won't be enough anymore. I keep sensing a person who has replayed countless conversations in their mind. They may have imagined reaching out dozens of times, writing messages they never sent, deleting them, starting over, wondering if this moment should finally be the one where they tell you everything that has been sitting inside their heart. Okay, this is interesting because their silence doesn't feel empty. It feels intentional. They seem to understand that if they come toward you again, they can't arrive carrying the same version of themselves that walked away before. There's an awareness growing inside them, and it may have taken much longer than either of you expected. Whatever happened between the two of you seems to have left a mark that time simply couldn't erase. Then judgment appears, and suddenly everything becomes even more personal. I'm not hearing loud apologies or dramatic promises. Instead, I sense quiet realizations, the kind that arrive late at night when distractions disappear, and there's nothing left except honesty. This person may be looking back at choices they once defended with confidence, only to realize those decisions slowly created the distance they never truly wanted. It's almost like they're meeting themselves for the first time, recognizing parts of their own ego they couldn't see before. Scorpio, one thing keeps repeating itself throughout this reading. Your calmness may have spoken louder than arguments ever could. The boundaries you created, whether intentional or not, may have become a mirror for this person. Instead of chasing after explanations, you simply protected your own peace. And somehow, that quiet strength continues echoing inside them. They may have expected you to keep waiting, to keep reaching out, or to keep giving endless chances. But your silence may have shown them something far more powerful than words ever could. The Page of Swords keeps catching my attention because it carries this feeling of observation. I wouldn't be surprised if this person has remained curious about your life, even from a distance. They may wonder how you're doing, whether you've changed, whether someone else has stepped into the place they once occupied. They may notice little signs that remind them of you without even trying. A familiar song, a familiar place, a conversation that unexpectedly brings your name into their thoughts. None of these moments seem dramatic. They simply keep happening, quietly reminding them that your influence never completely faded. Oh my God, what really stands out here is how careful this person has become. Before, they may have acted first and reflected later. Now it almost feels reversed. Every possible conversation is being rehearsed inside their mind before they ever allow themselves to reach your world again. They're questioning every sentence, every choice, every emotion, because somewhere deep inside, they understand that trust isn't rebuilt through beautiful words alone. It grows through consistency, patience, and genuine change. As Eight of Pentacles gently joins the reading, I don't immediately think about work. I think about effort, quiet effort, the kind nobody applauds because it happens behind closed doors. This person may be trying to become someone they themselves can finally respect. They may still have fears. They may still wonder whether they're already too late. But there is something about their energy that feels different now. Less impulsive, less defensive, more willing to slow down and understand what truly matters. Yeah, the strongest feeling I leave this part with isn't certainty. It's preparation. It feels like someone standing just outside a familiar door, taking one long breath before deciding whether they have finally become brave enough to knock. And somehow, Scorpio, your energy remains the reason they keep believing that this conversation could still be worth having. Some lessons seem to arrive long after the moment has passed, and this connection carries that feeling so strongly. I keep sensing someone looking back at the beginning of everything with completely different eyes. What once felt ordinary to them no longer feels ordinary at all. They're realizing that meeting you wasn't just another chapter that could easily be replaced. It became the chapter that quietly changed every page that followed. The Five of Cups settles into the reading with an energy that feels incredibly personal. This doesn't come across as someone simply missing the relationship. It feels like they're grieving the version of themselves that couldn't recognize what was standing right in front of them. There may have been a time when they believed there would always be another opportunity, another conversation, another chance to explain themselves later. Life seemed to move fast enough that they never imagined later could slowly disappear. Yeah, regret has a very quiet voice. It doesn't usually arrive while everything is exciting. It often shows up during ordinary moments, while driving home, while making coffee in the morning, while sitting in a room filled with people and somehow still feeling alone. That's where I feel this person has been spending a lot of emotional time, not because someone is forcing them to remember, but because their own heart keeps bringing your presence back into focus. The Six of Cups almost feels like a collection of memories scattered across their everyday life. Tiny details they once overlooked have somehow become priceless. They remember your patience. They remember the way you listened. They remember conversations they barely appreciated back then. Even moments that felt insignificant at the time seem much brighter when viewed through the lens of distance. It's almost as though your absence has taught them the value of your presence in a way nothing else ever could. Oh my God, there's something else coming through very clearly. I don't think this person expected you to stop waiting for them. They may have believed that no matter how inconsistent they became, your heart would always leave the door unlocked. But Scorpio has a quiet way of protecting itself. You don't always announce when you've reached your limit. Sometimes you simply step back, and that silence speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. That shift seems to have changed everything inside this person. Respect keeps appearing throughout this reading in such an interesting way. Not because you demanded it with anger, but because you demonstrated it through your choices. Every boundary you created may have challenged this person to ask themselves difficult questions. Why did they take genuine love for granted? Why did they keep searching for excitement while overlooking something deeply meaningful? Those questions don't appear to have easy answers, and perhaps that's exactly why they've remained with this person for so long. The Emperor carries a completely different energy than what I felt earlier. There's less emotional chaos surrounding this card. Instead, I sense someone who no longer wants to be driven by impulse. They may have spent a long time trying to control situations without ever learning how to truly lead their own heart. That seems to be changing. Growth isn't always loud. Sometimes it simply looks like someone becoming more accountable for the choices they once tried to justify. Okay, this doesn't necessarily mean every obstacle has disappeared. They may still have fears about whether you would even want to hear what they have to say. They may question whether too much time has passed or whether the damage feels impossible to repair. But those doubts don't seem to be stopping the emotional shift that's happening within them. If anything, those fears appear to be encouraging them to become more honest than they've ever been before. The Knight of Cups feels gentle here. Not dramatic, not rushed. I don't see someone trying to sweep you off your feet with perfect words or impossible promises. Instead, I sense someone hoping that sincerity might finally matter more than charm. They may want to approach you without pretending to have all the answers. They simply want the chance to show you that the person standing before you today isn't carrying the same mindset that once created so much distance. One thought continues echoing as these cards rest together. Sometimes people don't recognize the rarest connections while they're living inside them. Only after the silence grows loud enough do they begin to understand what they allowed to slip through their hands. Whether this energy belongs to your story or simply offers something meaningful to reflect upon, it feels like a heart that has finally stopped running from its own truth and is slowly learning how to walk toward it instead. Something feels very different in this person's inner world, Scorpio. It's almost as if they're standing in front of a life they no longer recognize, quietly realizing that many of the things they once chased no longer bring the comfort they thought they would. This doesn't feel like change happening because someone forced them. It feels like the kind of transformation that begins when the heart grows tired of pretending everything is fine. The Death card arrives with remarkable calmness. There's no sense of panic around it. Instead, I feel someone slowly releasing old versions of themselves, piece by piece. Habits that once felt impossible to let go of are beginning to lose their grip. Certain conversations no longer interest them. Certain friendships may suddenly feel heavier than they used to. Even familiar environments seem different because this person has started looking at life through completely new eyes. Yeah, sometimes healing isn't about adding something new. Sometimes it's about finally having the courage to put down everything that never truly belonged to you. That's exactly what I keep sensing here. This person may have spent years carrying expectations, unhealthy patterns, or relationships that demanded pieces of them without ever giving real peace in return. Those attachments don't seem to fit anymore, and they're beginning to notice that themselves. Scorpio, your energy keeps appearing in an unexpected way throughout this reading. I don't feel that you intentionally tried to teach this person anything. Simply being yourself may have challenged beliefs they didn't even realize they were living by. You showed them what consistency could look like. You showed them that genuine connection doesn't need endless games to survive. That quiet example may have stayed with them far longer than either of you could have imagined. The star gently enters this spread like a soft light after a very long night. Hope doesn't seem loud here. It feels cautious, almost fragile. I sense someone beginning to believe that life could become something healthier than it once was. They're allowing themselves to imagine a future built on honesty instead of appearances, a future where peace matters more than temporary excitement. That shift alone feels enormous because it suggests they're no longer measuring happiness by the same standards they once did. Oh my God! The moon carries such an intimate feeling here. There are still emotions this person hasn't completely figured out. They may wake up wondering why your name crosses their mind so often. They may question why memories surface at unexpected moments, or why certain dreams leave them feeling unusually emotional. Rather than running away from those feelings like they may have before, they're beginning to sit with them. They're listening instead of escaping, and that seems to be opening doors inside themselves that have remained locked for a very long time. Something tells me they're also becoming much more honest about fear. Not fear of loving someone, but fear of repeating old versions of themselves. They don't want to build another connection only to watch it fall apart because of habits they refuse to confront. That awareness seems incredibly important, because genuine growth often begins the moment someone stops blaming everyone else and quietly says, "I have work to do too." The Ace of Cups carries such beautiful energy in this reading because it doesn't feel rushed. I don't see someone desperately trying to fill an emotional emptiness. Instead, I sense a heart becoming ready to receive love differently than before. There seems to be a willingness to give without constantly calculating what they'll receive in return. A willingness to stay present instead of always searching for the next distraction. That emotional maturity may still be developing, but it feels authentic. Okay, I also feel this person becoming far more selective about who has access to their life. Some relationships around them may naturally begin fading away because they no longer reflect who they're becoming. Certain influences that once encouraged confusion or emotional distance seem less attractive than they used to. It's almost as though they're clearing space without even realizing it, making room for something that feels more meaningful and more aligned with the person they're growing into. One gentle message continues flowing through every card resting on this table. Real love often begins changing someone long before a conversation ever happens. Whether this connection ultimately moves forward or simply becomes part of a larger life lesson, the transformation itself feels genuine. A heart that once followed pride appears to be learning how to follow compassion instead, and that may become one of the most important journeys this person has ever taken. There is a weight sitting on this person's heart that feels impossible for them to ignore any longer. It isn't only about missing you, it's the growing realization that life doesn't wait forever. People heal, seasons change, hearts find new rhythms. Somewhere deep inside, they seem to understand that Scorpio may no longer be standing in the same emotional place where they left you. The Nine of Swords carries an energy that feels incredibly restless. I don't get the sense that this person is sleeping peacefully these days. Their mind seems unusually active, replaying moments they wish they could relive differently. Certain conversations may return without warning. Certain expressions on your face may suddenly appear in their memory as if they happened yesterday. It's almost like their own thoughts refuse to let the past stay in the past. Yeah, guilt has a way of asking difficult questions. What if they had shown up when you needed support instead of pulling away? What if they had listened more carefully instead of assuming there would always be another opportunity? Those questions don't seem to have easy answers, and perhaps that's exactly why they continue echoing inside this person's heart. The Four of Cups creates a quiet pause in the reading. I feel someone recognizing opportunities they overlooked because they were distracted by everything except what truly mattered. Back then, they may have been focused on proving something, protecting their pride, or chasing experiences that looked exciting on the surface. Looking back from where they stand today, those things seem far less meaningful than they once did. The connection they shared with you appears to have gained value with time rather than losing it. Oh my God. I keep hearing one sentence repeating itself over and over. I should have been there. Whether they ever say those exact words out loud or not, that feeling seems deeply rooted inside them. There may have been moments when your world felt heavy, moments when you quietly hoped they would reach out, and somehow they weren't emotionally available in the way you deserved. That realization doesn't seem to be coming from outside criticism. It's coming from their own conscience. Scorpio, I also sense that your energy feels more peaceful than it once did, not because everything has been easy, but because you've continued living your life even while carrying unanswered questions. That quiet resilience may be exactly what unsettles this person the most. They may wonder whether you've finally found happiness without them, whether you've stopped checking your phone, whether you've stopped hoping for explanations. The possibility that you've genuinely begun moving forward seems to awaken emotions they never fully allowed themselves to experience before. The Page of Cups feels incredibly sincere here. I don't see rehearsed speeches or dramatic gestures. I see someone wishing they could begin with something very simple, maybe an honest apology, maybe a conversation without defenses, maybe just enough courage to admit they handled things poorly. There seems to be an understanding that vulnerability is no longer something to avoid. It may actually become the only path capable of opening a meaningful conversation between the two of you. One unfinished exchange keeps appearing throughout these cards. It's almost as though words were left suspended in the air, never reaching the place they were meant to go. Perhaps both of you walked away carrying different pieces of the same story, leaving chapters unwritten because timing, fear, or misunderstanding stepped into the middle. That lingering silence doesn't feel peaceful anymore. It feels unfinished. Okay. The Ace of Swords brings a refreshing energy into this reading. It doesn't promise that every conversation will unfold perfectly, but it does suggest clarity trying to find its way through confusion. Truth often arrives quietly. Sometimes it begins with one honest sentence instead of a perfect explanation. This person may be discovering that authenticity carries far more healing power than carefully constructed excuses ever could. A gentle reminder continues flowing through these cards. Fear often convinces people to remain silent because silence feels safer than rejection. Yet silence can also become the very thing that creates the ending they hope to avoid. Whether this message belongs directly to your situation or simply offers something meaningful for your own reflection, it feels like two hearts standing much closer to honesty than they have been in a very long time, quietly approaching a conversation that may have been waiting for its moment all along. A powerful shift seems to be unfolding around this person's life, and it doesn't feel like the kind of change they carefully planned. It feels more like life gently reaching a point where old foundations can no longer support the future they're trying to build. There comes a moment when everything familiar begins asking uncomfortable questions, and I believe this person has reached that crossroads. The Tower arrives with an intensity that cannot easily be ignored, yet strangely, I don't experience this card as punishment. It feels more like truth arriving without asking permission. Situations that once appeared stable may suddenly reveal hidden cracks. Relationships they thought would last forever may begin showing their true nature. Even environments that once felt comfortable may no longer bring the sense of security they once did. Yeah, sometimes life removes what we've been unwilling to release ourselves. That process can feel confusing while it's happening, but there's something in these cards that suggests this person is beginning to understand why certain doors needed to close. They may have spent years trying to fit into places where they never truly belonged, holding on to people who appreciated convenience more than genuine connection. The devil keeps drawing my attention because I don't see it speaking only about unhealthy habits. I also sense emotional attachments that quietly influenced many of this person's choices. Perhaps they stayed around people who constantly encouraged fear instead of growth. Perhaps they believed success meant chasing approval rather than inner peace. Whatever those patterns were, they seemed to be losing their power little by little. Oh my God. There may even be moments where this person feels surprisingly alone. Not because no one exists around them, but because they're beginning to separate themselves from people who only supported the version of them that never questioned anything. Growth has a strange way of revealing who celebrates your freedom and who secretly prefers your dependence. That realization may not be easy, but it appears to be incredibly important. Scorpio, I keep feeling that your presence somehow planted a seed inside this person long before they realized it. Watching the way you protected your peace may have quietly challenged them to ask whether they were doing the same for themselves. They may have noticed how you refused to compromise your self-respect simply to keep someone comfortable. Those observations seem to be resurfacing during this period of transformation. The Seven of Wands feels different from resistance. I see determination here. This person may finally be learning that protecting their future sometimes requires disappointing people from their past. They may be saying no where they once automatically said yes. They may be refusing conversations that only create more chaos. There is a growing willingness to stand alone for a while if that means living more honestly than before. Okay, conflict doesn't always signal failure. Sometimes conflict simply reveals where truth and illusion can no longer exist together. There may be disagreements with friends, family members, coworkers, or people who benefited from this person's old way of thinking. Those situations seem less about winning arguments and more about reclaiming personal direction. Instead of asking everyone else what they should do, they're beginning to trust their own inner voice. The Wheel of Fortune brings such refreshing movement into this reading. After so much emotional work, I sense opportunities beginning to appear that simply weren't visible before. A different environment, a healthier circle of people, a fresh perspective on what love, stability, and success could actually look like. It feels less like luck suddenly arriving and more like life responding to choices that finally align with this person's authentic path. One image keeps appearing in my mind as I look at these cards together. It's someone standing at the edge of a familiar road they've walked for years, quietly realizing it no longer leads where they want to go. Turning around may feel uncertain. Walking into unfamiliar territory may feel intimidating, yet staying exactly where they are seems even more impossible. This energy carries courage in a very quiet form, not the courage to prove something to the world, but the courage to become someone they themselves can finally be proud of. That journey may still have unexpected twists ahead, but every difficult decision they make appears to be creating space for a life that feels far more genuine than the one they're slowly leaving behind. A sense of quiet determination settles over this reading, Scorpio, and it feels remarkably different from everything that came before. The energy no longer revolves around hesitation or confusion. Instead, I see someone reaching the end of an old chapter, with the understanding that if they truly want a different future, they have to become a different person. That realization appears to be shaping every choice they're making from this point forward. The world rises from the spread with a feeling of completion rather than loss. It feels like someone finally laying down emotional baggage they've carried for far too long. Old stories, old fears, old identities, they no longer seem to fit. There's a growing awareness that certain cycles have served their purpose, and holding on to them would only keep repeating the same painful patterns. This person seems ready to step into unfamiliar territory because staying where they were simply doesn't feel like an option anymore. Temperance brings such peaceful energy after everything these cards have revealed. Healing doesn't appear rushed here. It feels patient, thoughtful, genuine. I sense someone learning that real relationships aren't built through intensity alone. They're built through consistency, understanding, and the willingness to meet another person with honesty every single day. That's a lesson this individual may have needed time to truly understand, but it feels as though they're embracing it with an open heart. Yeah, one thing keeps standing out to me. They're no longer searching for excitement simply to avoid silence. They're beginning to appreciate the kind of connection that feels safe. The kind where two people don't have to perform for each other. The kind where trust quietly grows over time instead of being demanded overnight. Somehow, Scorpio, your energy seems to represent that possibility in their mind more than anyone else they've encountered. The Chariot carries an unmistakable feeling of movement. Whatever decisions have been forming inside this person's heart no longer feel like distant ideas. I sense someone preparing to move forward with intention instead of uncertainty. They may still experience nervous moments, but hesitation doesn't appear to be guiding them anymore. Their direction feels much clearer than it once did, and that clarity seems to be giving them the courage they lacked before. Oh my God! Four of Wands creates such a beautiful atmosphere around this reading. Rather than focusing only on reunion, I feel it speaking about stability. This person seems to be imagining a life that extends far beyond temporary emotions. They're picturing shared mornings, meaningful conversations, mutual support, and a relationship where both people feel free to be themselves. It's less about chasing a fantasy and more about building something that can actually endure life's changing seasons. The appearance of the Empress and the Emperor together feels incredibly significant. I don't experience these cards as perfection. Instead, they remind me of two individuals who have each grown through different journeys before finding themselves capable of standing beside one another with greater balance. Whether this represents your story directly or simply the energy surrounding this connection, it suggests that maturity may be replacing old emotional patterns in ways that neither of you could have forced before the timing was right. Justice quietly settles beside these cards as though everything has been moving toward a moment of emotional honesty. Life has a way of bringing people face to face with the consequences of their choices, not always through punishment, but through understanding. This person seems ready to accept responsibility for what happened without trying to rewrite the past. That willingness to face the truth may become one of the strongest foundations they have to offer moving forward. The Six of Cups fills the reading with warmth that feels deeply familiar. I don't experience it as someone trying to return to who they used to be. Instead, I sense them hoping to reconnect with the sincerity that first brought the two of you together before fear, pride, and misunderstanding complicated everything. They seem to believe that something genuine still deserves care if both hearts are willing to approach it differently than before. Okay, before we close this reading, I want to leave you with one gentle thought. Tarot reveals possibilities, emotional currents, and the lessons unfolding around us, but every heart still carries the freedom to choose its own path. If this message resonates with your journey, perhaps it simply serves as a reminder that meaningful transformation often begins quietly, long before anyone else can see it. Whether this connection unfolds exactly as these cards suggest, or leads you toward an even greater chapter waiting ahead, your own peace, your growth, and your self-worth remain the most beautiful foundation you can carry with you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, Scorpio. You truly mean a lot to me, and I'll see you in the next reading. Until then, take gentle care of yourself. Bye for now.